From politics and policy to rumors and stories, I'm Julie Grace Brucky, and this is Sources Say. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sources Say with Julie Grace podcast. I'm Julie Grace Brucky, and we're here today with one of the most interesting people I know, one of my favorite people to chat with, former Congressman Denver Riggleman. Thanks for joining us, Dan.
I am so happy to be here.
So, you've been a member of Congress. You've done a lot of huge things since. You've kind of been in the belly of the beast with politics. And now that you're out, I feel like you can kind of freewheel and tell us what it's really like on the inside there, more so than the people that are currently serving. So I'm excited to have you on.
I'm happy to be here. I'm sorry I'm from New York, JG. I'm on travel. I'm actually going to be on CNN later, so they flew me out here. So I just want to let you know that's why I'm not home at my beautiful studio.
Fancy on CNN later, but big time now. But yeah, let's chat about your time in Congress and just kind of reflecting back on it, on, I guess, looking
The
back on
Nutter.
how politics are going now, and let's talk about some of the craziest things that you saw while you were in there.
Oh my gosh, you want to just start right off the bat with the
It's usually my last question for people, but I figure we kick things off.
Well, I mean, it started pretty early. I won a convention I wasn't supposed to win by one vote. I don't think people remember my story. I literally am the accidental congressman. And I remember I was thrown into the Young Guns program by McCarthy. And, I always thought of myself as a new Republican, more socially liberal, that kind of stuff, which you saw how far that got me. But I remember I was flown out to the Schwab Ranch, and I was there with Rick Perry, Don Jr., Ross Perot Jr., Kimberly Guilfoyle, right? You wouldn't believe. But I remember I'm like, I didn't know that during these Republican retreats, everybody was supposed to wear spandex. I don't know if I've ever seen so much of that in my life. And that was really the first time. And that was, partly Kimberly Guilfoyle. But it was incredible because my wife looks around, she goes, you know what? I'm actually dressed pretty nice. I'm not showing a lot of cleavage. I started laughing because I'm like, what is happening? Right. I'm at the Schwab Ranch. People are teaching me how to fly fish. I got a private guide. It's just insane. And I think that was my first real trip, was sitting there looking around like, I don't think I dressed like Republicans dress today, and my wife, and how odd it was. But that was my first real experience.
You've been in there. You were initially a member of the Freedom Caucus, right?
Oh, yeah, that was pretty interesting. My first ever conversation in the Freedom Caucus. Julie Grace, I came from literally the Fifth District of Virginia, where they said, Denver, if you're not a member of the Freedom Caucus, you're not going to be effective. And to be honest, I didn't really track the Freedom Caucus that much. I had multiple companies. I came out. I was the electronic warfare coordinator for the Pentagon at the time, for one of the offices there. But I remember my very first meeting in the Freedom Caucus, Louis Gohmert wanted to put in a bill to stop the one world algorithm from suppressing conservative voices, which is one of the craziest things I had ever heard, me being from NSA and know how algorithms work. But I remember there was an argument in the Freedom Caucus about whether they should actually draft a bill to stop a one world suppressing algorithm. And I'm looking around and they're talking about globalist conspiracy theories and the deep state. And this was in my first Freedom Caucus meeting. And I remember Ben Klein was sitting next to me, and I looked at him. He was new too, 116th Congress, 2019. And I said, man, I got to say something. This is insane. Because don't say anything. But I did. And it was my first time. I think it was probably the first and last time they wanted me in a meeting with the Freedom Caucus, because I was pretty specific on how ridiculous that was. So yeah, my first experiences were just sort of the tip of what I was about to experience for the next 2 years.
Right. So, I know you're a big conspiracy theory. You love to debunk them. You got a bunch of shit coming into Congress and getting hit with Bigfoot erotica. I
Yeah, that was fun. I had written a book about conspiracy theories and cults and how people get lost in it. And you got to remember this: I was running against Olivia Wilde's mom,
I forgot about that. That is wild lore.
Leslie Coburn, and yeah. So when she put out that I was a Bigfoot eroticist based on my book, I think I was a Nazi Bigfoot eroticist. I think there was some layers to it. I remember that Olivia Wilde was dating Jason Sudeikis, so I thought it was so stupid. How could anybody believe it? But I think I was number one in the world in a viral way on Twitter, which was great. And then, of course, Saturday Night Live pilloried me, and Colbert and Fallon and Kimmel. And I think all of it came from the planting because when Olivia Wilde retweeted it, Jason Sudeikis got a hold of it. My guess is they both went to Saturday Night Live and said, let's go ahead and get this guy. Maybe it'll help my mommy win. Of course, it was a lie. It was disinformation. But I think it also taught me the lesson that not even me, a disinformation and radicalization expert, somebody who went against it in my military career, was immune from the lies of some pretty greasy politicians. So, yeah, the conspiracy theory was that I was a Bigfoot eroticist, a devotee to Bigfoot erotica. You know what makes me mad? I got a call. There was an 8,000% jump in Pornhub searches for Bigfoot erotica, and I never got any money for that. And I think to
Bravo.
this, I think I'm owed royalties for that conspiracy theory.
It's you should be getting royalties on that. That's like the
Well,
time I wrote all these articles on like China intellectual property theft, and then someone bought the URL for juliegracebrocky.com and turned it into a Chinese porn site. Since
so,
taken down, it's relatable. I
so
also wasn't making any money off of it.
we, you feel me. You see me.
It's a
You
rare thing to
see me,
develop on
right?
it.
How just you see me how conspiracies work, and but it's pretty interesting because I was the first person to come out against QAnon. Obviously, I just despise conspiracy theories, propaganda, and lies. But it was pretty interesting that I had to use my own humor and my own literal training to get through that mess because once that lie, perpetuates, it's very difficult to put that genie in the bottle. And that's why everybody said you had the best Chinese porn site, right? It's very difficult. I'm kidding, as you know. I'm joking. So there you Oh goodness. I think I lost. I think I.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. It's just crazy. That um, the fact that you've gone through that, the fact on the Hill. I've loved what you've been writing about what's going on the Hill. And you asked me these first two things. It just scratches the surface of how awful it is up there, and how much crazy you have to absorb. And so when I walk in there, my very first fundraiser, Patrick McHenry introduces me as the Bigfoot guy. And so I had to show everybody my Bigfoot socks because I was trolling those people who made fun of me. So, but I made a lot of money on that first one by telling, my Bigfoot expedition stories, as you know. So there you go.
What's the most corrupt thing you saw up there? Who are your most corrupt former colleagues?
Oh my goodness. Oh, what a question. What is the most corrupt thing I've ever seen up there? I think, one day I was visited by 33 lobbyists. And I will say this, the most corrupt thing that happens, the transactional thing that you see, is that you are expected to vote on the line of those who gave you the most money. And I remember I would have, lobbyists from APAC, lobbyists, from NRA, lobbyists from anywhere that were on the right or who supported me on that would come and say, "You're voting yes on this, right?" There was never like they would have some touchy feely language at the beginning, but it really came down to, "Hey, we supported you. No matter what, you have to support us." It's completely transactional. I also think when you look at corruption, I think it's every single vote almost that Congress takes. And I think what you're looking at is that from the leadership on down, whether you're in the minority or majority party, you have to stay in the current. And I can tell you that is absolutely true because I voted to keep pre-existing conditions. Everybody thinks, when I officiated the same-sex wedding, that's what really just completely destroyed me as a Republican, which is probably true. But people forget I also voted to legalize marijuana, which was woo. And I also voted, right, to keep pre-existing conditions in healthcare, which now seems to be what everybody wants. But at the time, as we had to repeal the ACA, right, in the first Trump administration. And I wasn't all about that because my district, 65% rural, mostly Republicans, were covered by the ACA. I mean, it's ludicrous. But the corruption is so endemic. And I think it's because money controls every single process, vote, and committee meeting there. And I think that's the issue. The most corrupt member, I think we're all part of this system that for me, I sort of bucked. But if anybody's been over there 3 or 4 terms, most of the votes they've taken are based on their donations, not on what's best for their constituents most of the time. And I think that's in a two-party system. I think that's why we've gone down such a bad road.
So I've talked to some members that have been up there a while who I've kind of made the counter argument of like I've talked to people about whether term limits should be a thing or like, but I feel like a lot of people I've talked to feel like a lot of the people that are running are just trying to go up there for attention and not getting things done. And it's kind of like the old school guys that are actually keeping their heads down and getting things done. I mean, like, what do you make of that argument?
Well, the horses and show horse argument, right? I think that's what you're saying, right? But most of Congress now are show horses. I think there's some good workhorses up there that do good stuff. But again, I think the exception proves the rule. Julie Grace, I really believe that 80% of the people are up there just because this is like their creme de la creme of the ball, right? They finally got an invite. They get to go to dinner in Statuary Hall. They get invited to the White House. They get first reservations at the Capitol Grill, and I think a lot of that has to do with it develops you, right? That you have that kind of that pen power, with the pen on your chest, able to do that. I think there's a few term limits will never work. It's funny. I hear the arguments, right? That well, term limits are instituted by the voters. No, money is what drives it. I don't think you'll ever see a term limit vote because I don't think there's going to be one single congressman or congresswoman who that is the pinnacle of their life is going to vote for a law that actually could put them out of everything that they've ever wanted to be. For me, I went to much cooler parties in the late '90s when I was in the military than I ever did at Congress. So Congress was just something that I wanted to serve. I fell into it almost, and it didn't destroy me once I was out. It actually was a massive relief, but it also means that it's a duty thing. And I'm wondering, should I get back into it really at this point, just based on what I'm seeing?
I mean, kind of looking at the culture up there now from the outside, I mean, how do you think things have changed and looking at some of your former colleagues that you served with?
I think it's become more virulent. I think it had changed by 2016 when Trump came in. I came in 2018, 2019. But right now, you're seeing everybody seems to be those who are attracted to politics now. Really, it's sort of this. It's like sycophants and bootlickers have combined right into this like this molded type of bizarre personality where they just want to be close to the man, whoever that might be. I've never seen such this sort of this beta anti Article One like authority type of Congress where it's just they want to be on TV, they want to have their own shows, they want to have their own pods. They don't want to really do anything, and they're waiting for Trump to say, good boy, good girl, and pat them. But you can't honestly say on the left you don't have that same kind of top down sort of sycophancy, right? They're going to vote party lines and who actually does put money in their pocket, honestly. But I also think you see this sort of this rise in this sort of this coming out of I thought the Me Too movement was going to be something that would stop some of this, but I think what you're seeing right now with the Swalwells, the downstream effect of actually voting for and putting somebody in office who's been adjudicated of sexual assault. I think the difference now is it seems like there's such a lack of morality, such a broken moral compass there that I don't know how they come back from that. I think it is more virulent. I think it is worse than when I was in there, but the people attracted to it are just low life scumbags. I think that's really the big difference.
I mean, do you think, I mean, just having been up there and seen how things work behind the scenes, that leadership has done too much to protect people that have done wrongdoing from like, did you witness?
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to protect yourself from any type of issues, right? You're raising money. You can't be seen as a leader that has a bunch of fraudsters and sexual assaulters and people that are under ethics investigations, which seems to be more and more every day. And a lot of times when you see people resign for weird reasons, or they say they make up something like, "Oh, I'm resigning because of I don't know." I just can't take it anymore. I have to go to stress therapy. Usually means they're under an ethics investigation. And I think what you're saying is a leadership that's also morally bankrupt because it's about winning. When I went into Congress, Julie Grace, Kevin McCarthy said something to me that stuck with me all this time. He said, winners make history. The only thing you got to think about the first day you're elected is how you win the next time. And I think that's no matter what. I don't think that even matters if you're moral. I don't think it matters what you want to do for your constituency. It's what you can do to actually keep the party leadership happy so the fundraising continues. And when I was in was to keep Trump happy, which as you noticed, I didn't. And I think that's what happened, right? Is that leadership is just so morally bankrupt. A two-party system will always lead to bankruptcy because it's just corporate verticals and they're just trying to feed themselves. It's self-dealing. And I think until we get another way, I think we're sort of stuck with this until we get to 50 or 60 trillion dollars in debt.
I mean, I feel like things do seem polarized on both sides of the aisle. You left the GOP. You just mentioned potentially running again down the line. Like, is there a space for independence these days? I mean, it seems like in the Senate they can still caucus with one side or the other and get things done, but on the House, it's like we've seen people who've left the party who then lose their committee spots and then essentially are just completely neutered from being able to do anything. I mean, I guess
Well,
how do things get
you
fixed
just
there?
you just nailed it, didn't you? I mean, the two-party system controls everything in the House. Majority rules. And I think that's what's really crazy. I don't think the American public realize how much that the rules are arbitrary in Congress and it keeps out everybody else. It's the money, right? It's the two-party instantiated system. It's the corporate structures. It's everybody monetized, right? They're incentivized to keep this structure. So an outsider, somebody's going to come in like me as an independent. I'm not even going to get a committee seat. And that is absolutely undemocratic. It's against everything we are as Americans when you have two parties that control every committee spot, every piece of leadership that you do. And it's because of loyalty. It's because of sycophancy. It's bootlicking. It's all of that crap. And there's some people like me that just don't fit into that mold. And so, yeah, I'm going to find out if independent is the way to go. I surely am. And that means I'm completely free. So if we're in a bar fight and you got Democrats and Republicans fighting each other, I get to go in there with bottles and hammers and do whatever I want to do to whatever side I want to do. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, and I look at this as a bar fight. It's a moral bar fight. It's an intellectual bar fight. But what it comes down to is how do we change this awful direction we're in right now? And I think the numbers prove it. We're in a tribal society with a flattened economy and decision makers that seem to be making decisions on their own personal wealth and gain rather than what's best for the American people.
I mean, I do wonder with like recruitment on both sides of the aisle and like kind of, I've spoken to a few members who are just like, given some of the people that run that are a little showboaty. I mean, like, how do you even attract people that do want to get things done at this point?
You don't. It has to be somebody who, like me, maybe that's been there, saw that it was just a bunch of showboats. You try to rise up, you get your butt kicked, and then you're like, okay, I have to find a new way of service in a way that I'm not, sort of knuckle dragging with these folks. I hate it. It's been 5 or 6 years. It doesn't feel that long, does it, Julie Grace? But it's been some time since I was in Congress, and I hate it. I would rather self-immolate than run for Congress again. That's why if I do run, it's going to be an executive position. It'll be for governor. It'll be for, something along those lines. It's not ever going to be in the legislative branch again. I can't imagine. I mean, I'm 56. I can't imagine serving 6 years in the Senate after doing a stint in the House. I think I'd rather jump off. I think I'm on the 29th floor here of the Marriott. I think I'd rather try to get a hammer, get through that glass and just jump than run for Congress again. But I do think there's a duty to people like me who served in Congress, who served in the military, who have had a very, I would say, fortunate life, even with a lot of hardships. I think that there's a duty. You get to a certain age, you're like, maybe I just do it because it's the right thing to do, not because I really give a rat's ass, right? Whether I get on TV or not. But you know what the flip to that is, right? You have to be on TV, and that's the thing. You go back and forth. Like, am I that much of a narcissist and a sociopath to want to do this again? So, and am I doing this just because of duty? I think, yeah, that's where I'm at. But again, there's also, again, you sort of get that I'm better than they are. And I do feel that I'm better than just about everybody else serving in Congress right now. And that's the truth. But I should feel that way. That's not narcissistic at all, is it, Julie Grace? That's just so humble.
I mean, I think not everyone up there is a terrible. Yeah, I mean, who are you impressed with? Who do you still keep in touch with? Who do you think's actually well intentioned up there? So I
Both
think a lot of
sides.
people do go in well intentioned. I
Yeah, I mean, old school. I still talk to Max Rose all the time, things like that, and still talk to people that I served with, Jason Crow, right, Elaine Laurie on the Democratic side, obviously Abigail Spanberger, the governor, is a friend of mine on the Democratic side. Certainly, there's people that I keep in touch with on the Republican side, Don Bacon, Mike McCall. Every now and then I'll get back in touch with Brian Fitzpatrick, right? And there's even people that have decidedly gone MAGA that I'm still fairly close to. They still call me like Guy Reschenthaler and stuff like that. So, it's I have this incredible thing where I get calls from both sides of the aisle still. But I think people that are down the line with Trump understand that it's not going to be a great conversation if you're trying to talk to me about that guy. But they also know that I'm going to tell them the truth, and I think that's something that I've always tried to do. Is I don't usually back down. If I have an intellectual or moral stand that's based on facts and data, I'll take it. And if they don't like it, I understand it. It doesn't mean we have to hate each other. But again, I don't think that's really an attitude anymore. I think people automatically take it personally and go down that line.
to get back to these conspiracy theories. I mean, like you mentioned, having some former colleagues that kind of bought into stuff. I mean, you're kind of an
Come
expert in
on.
this issue area. I mean, I guess what do you think makes people buy into this? And like, what is the, I mean, some of the stuff it's like with QAnon, it seems so out there that it's like, how do people, like, I guess, how do you combat that in the age of social media?
I think there's I know this isn't true a lot of times, but a lot of people say, marijuana is the gateway drug to heroin or whatever, or cocaine. I think those first conspiracy theories or your belief systems as a child that you've never given up also can lead you down that route. And it's not all, people in religion or not everybody who's evangelical. That would be ludicrous to say. But there are some people, if they do believe that they have a supernatural voice in their head, they're going to believe in Bigfoot or UFOs or alien abductions, right? And people that I love to have tacos with, right? I would have lunch with Tim Burchett, right? And we'd talk about, he was a Bigfoot believer. I wrote the book about Bigfoot cults, and we'd have this back and forth on Bigfoot. But now I see Tim, and Tim's gone all the way down to aliens or in the Bible conspiracy theories. Eric Burleson, anybody who believes David Grush, I'm like, you guys are just getting taken by a grifter. So I think what you're seeing now is you're seeing fantasy, chemtrails. You're seeing people who believe in chemtrails, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and my guess is so does Eric Burleson, and so does Tim Burchett. Once you're sort of addicted, or once you get into that first conspiracy theory, say you are a 9/11 truther, or you believe that the moon landing was faked, or you believe that there's a flat Earth, dear Lord, the dumbest of all conspiracy theories, right? Or you believe in all false flags, or that kind of stuff going down the line. If you believe that, you're more probably susceptible to believe in fantasies. Like we have a good president right now, that fantasy. But I think those are some of the things that really bother me is that you can't have fantasists making policy, and there's so much ridiculousness on the Hill where there are decisions being made by people who don't know the difference between reality and fantasy. And I think that is what scares me the most about our government right now.
So you don't have big expectations for this big UFO release that's supposed to be happening.
No, it is such shite. Listen, it's just covers and distraction of weirdness. It's like we have an American public. I wonder how many don't read above the eighth grade level. I think it's probably over 50%. But I think they're so culpable, so credulous. They want to believe anything. This UFO stuff is so ridiculous. It's frighteningly stupid. And I think that's one of the things that I've been trying to impress upon people is that everything that you're seeing is a distraction, whether it's on purpose or on accident. It doesn't matter. There's an old saying, right, in the military, whether you get shot on purpose or shot on accident, you're still getting shot. So when you see these bubbas, this UFO disclosure stuff's been trying to happen since 1947 in Roswell. And Roswell was completely a joke anyhow, bad reporting with made up terms on stuff that never happened. So we have based a complete mythology, a complete UFO based hearings on bullshit. And I think that's the thing that gets me is that all of this is shite. And there are not going to be any green little bodies showing up in body bags outside of your house. I can promise everybody that.
Is there a conspiracy theory you kind of buy into?
None.
None.
None. Listen, I know that's unexciting. I know. I know. I know. I have to see the facts and the data, right? If there's some I would want to chase more, I'm trying to think of one that I would think everybody wants to say, well, Denver, you believe, the JFK conspiracy theories. Not really. It's not a hard shot from Oswald where he was. I shot a long time. People definitely want me to look into the 2020 and 2024 elections. Republicans still, even though I was on the January 6th committee, like, Denver, 2020 was stolen. Democrats, 2024. I like digging into that just to make them look like idiots using data and facts. But really, is there any conspiracy theories that?
Or are there any that have ever turned out to be true that you looked back on and were like, I definitely thought that was a conspiracy theory?
No, no, I'm that good. I'm that good. No, there's a difference between the thing too that I want to tell people. There's a difference between conspiracy theories and criminal conspiracies. Facts and data have to back it up. So if you say, hey, is it a conspiracy theory that a man who gets killed by a wife that's having an affair, it might be the wife? That's not a conspiracy theory. It's a theory about a conspiratorial action. And I think I try to actually, sort of to split that line. So I might be defining myself out of that question, Julie Grace, right? A little bit. So because if you're looking at conspiracy theories or criminal conspiracies, they both have the word conspiracy in them. They both actually deal with a conspiratorial thing that happened, but they're two different things. And I think that's what I try to sort of balance between. Are there any conspiracy theories that I thought was a conspiracy theory and turned out to be real? The only one I want to is Bigfoot. I would love if Bigfoot was real. It would make me laugh. I would tell everybody I was wrong. I would embrace that big furry thing and say, you know what? I'm sorry, man. I'm so sorry. I'd grunt at him a couple times, try to make him feel at home, maybe feed him some squirrel heads, just do everything I could. That's what I hope is true.
You get him some whiskey. So my favorite distiller.
This is, so that, you know what? Yeah. You know what I would too? I'd share a bourbon with a Bigfoot.
Oh man. Okay, so Virginia politics. Okay, so you had a weird primary situation. I mean, what do you make of the redistricting now? I mean, it was a weird system with the Republican with the convention thing. I mean, clearly we've seen things, new lines drawn that are pretty heavily partisan. I mean, as somebody who's an independent, what do you make of all this?
Well, what just happened with the Virginia Supreme Court overturning the actual vote right in Virginia. I find it absolutely incredible that we have a Supreme Court that took away any way for any court system to oversee either partisan or racial gerrymandering lines. Think about what that means. Absolutely incredible. And then for a court to overturn the will of the voters is pretty shocking to me. But, when I look at the decision, both the majority and the dissent were both correct in their technical interpretations and purpose of the law, which is a very interesting thing. And that's why the vote broke directly along partisan lines. I think what you're seeing with gerrymandering is really a race to the bottom, maybe the end of our republic as we know it. Because now that the Supreme Court has allowed for partisan and racial gerrymandering, and you have states like Virginia that break on party lines based on specific types of definitions, exactly on party lines, you have where you have a court system at the federal level saying that there's nothing the courts can do. And then you have a court system at the state level in Virginia saying the voters didn't really matter based on a technicality on how we define purpose or dissent based on an election schedule. And, it's just fascinatingly awful what's happening. I don't know how we stop this now. It's a race. And it goes back to the two party system, Julie Grace. I've told people eventually it's going to get us. George Washington was right. Thomas Jefferson ran as a Democratic Republican. But what I'm looking at as an independent now is you need independence more than ever. We need to go out and start calling out the hypocrisy of what's happening in real time. Donald Trump started this fight in Texas, and all these backroom deals for gerrymandering just went right through. But when Virginia tries to vote for it, it's not right based on a technicality. Yeah, maybe so. Maybe we're to a point right now that it doesn't really matter how we're doing this at this point because you're always going to have a partisan split now from Republican or Democrat on any type of legal interpretation. And that scares the shit out of me. God. And today I'm angry because the way that I was voted out, I wasn't even allowed a primary. It's about disenfranchising people. And what you're seeing right now is I was absolutely against the gerrymandering that was going on in Virginia that the Democrats put forth. But I still voted yes because when you're in a war, you can't use ethics to fight on a balanced playing field when everybody else is shooting at you. You don't take a squirt gun to a gunfight. And I think as much as I'm against MAGA, as much as I hated what's going on with gerrymandering, I voted yes on that. Because again, I just don't believe in unilateral disarmament. But that being said, there has to be a massive change in what's happening. But I don't see that anytime in the future. I see red states becoming more red, blue states becoming more blue. And I think the sane are suffering because of it.
I mean, are there any politicians that give you hope for the future, or is it just the
Yes, these are not fair. Let me tell you. I had to blow a raspberry on that one. Anybody who gives me hope for the future, um, I think there's some people out there that really are good people. I think that sort of got ate up and got spit out. I think why Don Bacon is leaving. I think why Mike McCall is leaving on the Republican side. I think they needed to stay, but I think also that they're completely ineffective once they lose their committee chairs. And at a certain point, they're getting overrun by people that are decidedly MAGA who've gone so far right they can't work with them anymore. I'm surprised Brian Fitzpatrick's even still in there. On the left, people that are coming up on the left, on the right, Republicans, if you're voting anywhere near Trump, there's no way I would support you. You're not the future, you are the past. You're somebody who needs to be summarily, politically ejected from the system, and I hope it happens. Are there any new Republicans coming up that are decidedly anti-Trump? Any McCain Romney types? Me, but I have to run as an independent. I have no space there. So it's me. I give me hope. That's sort of a joke. Anyway, but I do. I give me hope because I know who I
I think
am.
the admin is done right in since
The administration has done right since they started. I think that they've done everything he wanted to do. I think what have they done right? I think the Iran war, what they've done there has so overshadowed anything they might have done right anyway because of what's happening downstream, and the reason they chose to do that, Julie Grace, I think sort of overshadows all. I think when you're looking at the big beautiful bill, I think that goes backwards with deficit and debt. I don't think you can say they did a whole lot right because you're looking at the results of bad policy downstream. The issue is I don't know really what Biden did all that right during his stay. He stayed way too long. He should have got out when he did. He tried to do some things. At least we were stable. We had sort of stability. Whether that stability was great or not, I don't know. But I think the big problem with this administration is the chaos of it, the fact that they change every day because they have no real knowledge of what's happening overseas. Everything is done through the lens of Donald Trump and his own personal wealth and gain. And I think that's the issue. When you look at Democrats on the left, right, I really don't have a whole lot of hope unless you're talking about the Jason Crows. And obviously, for me, the Abigail Spanberger. She ran as so specifically moderate or somebody who wanted to do compromise. And that's what I'm hoping to see over the next 3.5 years with Abigail. I think Mikey Sherrill, I think, gives me some hope. I think Alyssa Slotkin gives me hope. I think she can do big things. I just hope that there's a new Republican Party more in the line of who I was and other people like me are that actually rises up. So yeah, I think independents give me hope. I think people who want to run outside of that give me hope. But I do have real fears when it's the Graham Plattners of the world that give Democrats hope. I think we're really going down again another very bizarre and specific rabbit hole when that happens.
I mean, do you see down the line a scenario where the pendulum kind of swings back to moderates and it's milquetoast candidates or
I don't know.
the Tim Palentis and the Mitt Romneys and the
I think milquetoast is out the door. I think even if you see somebody who claims to compromise, I think it's going to be an angry compromiser. I think it's going to be somebody who wants to fight and jaw. I mean, that's where I'm at. There is no way I'm going to be like, oh, both sides are right anymore. I'm going to say, I'll pick the best from both sides and try to come up with something that makes sense. But there are certain things that are sort of unassailable, right? It's things that you're not going to bend on. I think you're going to see more of a radical sort of look at what independence means that's coming up right now because being, I think the Ronald Reagan, Tip O'Neill days are over. I've had that feeling for some time. Even the Lindsey Graham McCain days, right? Where as friends that were in Congress, and they would reach across the aisle to Democrats on the other side, where you had this moderate to moderate trying to come up with specific issues that might help. With McCain and Kane, or the Warner Romney, or whatever you want to see about the people who used to work together. So I think those days with Trump, I think we have this very bizarre where it seems like anger, hostility, misogyny, those type of things on the right seem to be in big play. On the left, it's this bizarre identification politics that just absolutely just don't work with America at all. And I think nobody knows where to go. So I think you're going to see, I think it's the rise of the angry independent. I think that's what you're going to see, Julie Grace. I think milquetoast has gone out the door because milquetoast cannot work anymore.
I mean, what's the messaging to voters who seem to, I mean, you've got both sides spending a ton of money for the independents to be able to kind of break through the noise.
I think the baseline is you've tried that way, and they both suck. Are you going to keep doing the same thing, right? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Why would you keep doing this? Why would you keep complaining on social media and to your friends and to your family how both candidates suck, Republican and Democrat, but oh my God, an independent's running? They're going to take the vote away from my tribe. That's the issue, right? I think the message is incredibly simple. We're actually looking to make decisions that's best for the constituents. That's what we're looking at. And the other thing too, independents, I think they need to take this sort of this culture war stuff out of it. I'm done with it, right? If somebody comes up to me again, I mean, I remember, people grabbing my arm saying, "You're for exceptions for rape and incest and abortion. You're a killer." Get out of here. I don't even humor that anymore. I don't have to apologize. I don't have to do anything, right? But say, this is what I think is best. If you don't like it, I don't care. And I think a lot of people are like, well, Denver, you got to run to your constituency and look at polling and crosstabs. Yeah, we do. But those polling and crosstabs have to make sense. And I think that's the thing, right? Sorry, I'm going off now, aren't I, Julie Grace? I apologize. But that's what I would tell folks. You have tried both ways. You have tried it over and over. We're almost 40 trillion in debt. Our inflationary pressures are out of this world. We have a president out of his mind. You got two parties. One's either completely lunacy, the other one's milk toast, or just cowards, right? Almost unfettered, sort of slack jawed, individuals. And you want to still vote for your party and somebody who's coming up the middle, or somebody who's an independent, or somebody's coming from the outside, all of a sudden shakes your worldview because they're not a Democrat or a Republican. Get out of here. Then don't vote for me. There's my message, Julie Grace. Because I'm just going back to my distilleries or my AI companies and do really cool things. I'm here to help. If you don't want the help, that's great. Go vote for somebody else. Vote for somebody who believes that aliens, right, are sneaking into your house. Keep doing that.
Okay, so lighter note, last question. As a distiller, what is the best beverage out there?
Oh, besides my wife's whiskey, do you? Beside my wife's single barrel bourbon, the Christine Reserve, I have to say she has the best whiskey in the world, the best bourbon, the best gin, the best vodka. But I think so. What do you want? You want Scotch? You want bourbon? You want rye whiskey? What do you want? What do you want?
Your all-time favorite. It's
All-time favorite besides my
all-time
wife's
favorite.
stuff, because besides my wife's stuff, Christine Riggleman, number one. If I had to choose one drink to sit down beside a roaring fire with my dogs around me, with a cool wind blowing outside, a window slightly open, it would be a Lagavulin 16 neat.
Very nice. Is there anything I should be asking that I'm forgetting that you want to you want to add in there before we?
Julie Grace, I've learned that lesson a long time ago, to never add anything because it can get really bad.
It's fair. Well, thanks for joining us. Always fun to chat with you.
You're
And
the best.
and everyone, thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter at sourcessay.news and tune in next week.